Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge, where in today's episode, you'll hear 3 pro-revenge stories. The first, OP gets a sweet, satisfying revenge on her crappy district inspector. The second story, OP teaches his friend why you should never prank call anybody. And we'll finish up with a horrifying revenge that teaches a well-deserved lesson. My friends, I do hope you stay for the stories today and hit that subscribe button for future pro-revenge tales. If you guys like this kind of stuff, let's dive in. When I was younger, I worked at a major donut shop chain in Canada. There are more of these shops than McDonald's there, and everyone goes there. It's like a cult. I used to work at a corporate store that trained new franchisees. In addition to our regular operations, I used to train franchisees on how to operate the back-end baking shift from 4 a.m. till noon. I loved my work. I loved meeting new people. I loved showing them the process. I loved my company. I loved my 2 managers, and it was great. Except when it came to my inspector. Let's call her Mary. Mary was a district inspector, and she had it in for all of us there. Our staff would see her red car in the parking lot and scramble to tidy up. And she loved coming in when we were slammed, with a lineup out the door, tables needing cleaning, donuts flying off the racks, and everyone just trying to keep up. People used to freak when they saw her car pull up. She was slim, with big curly orange hair and a mean streak. She was an in-house inspector that worked for corporate, and she seemed to really enjoy her job marking faults and handing her reports to our managers for them to file. She enjoyed her work until she came into the kitchen when I was working, which was most days, and she hated it when I worked. Because I had to train people all the time, I had to keep a clean kitchen with everything stocked, because it needed to be ready for the next shift where I trained people. It was also in great shape, because the cleaning, refilling, prepping, and operating the kitchen to code was what I did with the franchisees while training them. It more or less took care of itself. It also didn't hurt that I was a perfectionist, and Mary did not seem to like that at all. She would find any excuse to dock me points. I think she was a little obsessed with it. She would go to great lengths to catch me screwing up. Even my managers, who were regularly rotated through other stores, felt bad for me. They said they've never seen that happen to anyone else like that. Mary would get irritated when she couldn't find much to report because she never wanted to give a perfect pass, and oh, she would look. She would pull out heavy, old, out-of-circulation mixers from the bottom shelves and run her hands along the back to check for dust. And I wiped that on a regular. It must have made her blood boil. She would always come down to docking me points for my shoes. My shoes were dark navy, not black, and therefore were not uniform compliant. I couldn't afford to buy shoes, making minimum wage and all, and every time she visited, she would condescendingly say, "Oh my god. Those shoes are disgusting. You should know better than to wear those to work." She'd point them out, imply that I'm lucky she didn't pursue it, she would dock me the points, and drop off the paperwork to my managers with a smug smile. Bonus if she could find a cobweb, and that would be in the report too. I hated her. She knew how proud I was and how seriously I took my job, and she just couldn't let me have that. I was also confused by it, because I had no negative history with her. I really took it personally. At the time, I was also the type of person that would beat myself up over things and was really critical of myself. So this put a lot of fuel on the fire. Maybe she felt I would make her look bad if she gave a perfect score. I'll never know. I had been taking Taekwondo at that time. I had an athletic background when I initially started, so I advanced quickly and was competing quite early for my belt level. During class, we would do our warm-ups, patterns, and finish by partnering up and practicing holds, throws, self-defense, sparring, etc. Occasionally when new students wanted to try a class, this is where they would join, so they could interact with other students. We didn't rubberneck to see who came in. Our instructor would just announce it and choose someone to pair with them. A lot of students didn't like partnering with newbies because it was boring. Although I would have rather trained with someone more advanced than me, I didn't mind being patient with a new student. My instructor welcomed a Mary to the class and directed me to pair up with her. I turned around and, holy crap, there she was. I think we both had the same thought. Oh my god, is this really happening right now? This is totally happening right now. It was surreal, like I was dreaming. I just kept staring at her and thinking, oh my goodness. During class, I got to show her how to defend against an attack from the rear. where you drop down to lower your center of gravity, rear elbow strike the assailant in the gut, grab their arm and use your leverage to flip them over your shoulder and onto their back on the ground in front of you. Then kneel on them to pin them while striking them in the solar plexus. I demonstrated that to her over and over and over again. I might also add that I killed her with kindness while doing so. Not because it was enjoyable to witness, but because I'm not the type of person to be mean in that situation anyway. I encouraged her to demonstrate that on me too, and would correct her by showing her the entire routine over again on her. I would say things like, "Almost got it, Mary. You just need to lower yourself like this, so you can flip the attacker like this." And wham! On her back again. That was for a good 30 minutes, but I guarantee it felt longer for her. The day after, I ran into work screaming, "You'll never believe what happened last night." My managers were giddy like children, and it was all high fives all around. Mary came back to a few more classes, which was shocking. My instructor paired us every time. I think he saw how enthusiastic and patient I was with her, and wanted to foster that relationship. Every morning after Taekwondo, my managers would want the updates immediately, asking things like, "How was it? Tell me about it. What did you do to her this time? Do an impression of her. Show me what her face was like." Mary dropped out after about 4 weeks, maybe less. It was a grand effort, Mary. I rarely even saw her at my work anymore. I think she used to time her visits around my shift or on my break. Sometimes I thought I saw her car driving out of the parking lot, and my managers would tell me that yes, that was her, and my report would just be left on the table in the back, and she never docked me points again. It was perfect. I absolutely enjoyed this story so much. If I were Mary and saw OP there in the class, I would have just turned right around and left. Imagine getting to beat up a crappy boss in a Taekwondo class. Guys, some people daydream about this stuff while at work, and OP got to live it. 10 years ago, a friend of mine crank called me several times in my office over the course of a day. I decided in that moment that 1, this would not stand, and 2, rather than entering into a long, protracted quagmire of a prank war, I would use the nuclear option and end it immediately. My friend Mike was a well-known local bartender, and was very much enjoying single life at the time, facts which I knew I could take advantage of. Soon, a plan began to form. I would have him served with a fake paternity suit while he was working at the bar. So I compiled a ton of free online legal documents, not just for the paternity suit, but also income disclosure forms, statements of parental rights, and suggested visitation schedules pending demonstrable proof of sobriety. I filled out all the forms, then smeared what looked like date received stamps as proof that they'd been filed, and ran copies to make those stamps even more eligible. From there, I crafted a backstory to be included in a cover letter from the fictional mother's fake law firm. The mother was an Irish exchange student visiting the area the previous summer. She had only been with Mike, so she knew the baby, Eliza, was his. The cover letter encouraged Mike to call her during regular office hours to discuss arranging a DNA test to confirm paternity. By the end, the paperwork was somewhere between 20 to 25 pages. I enlisted another friend, not known by Mike, to serve the documents and instructed him to do so around 10 p.m. on a Saturday evening. I told him to keep the interaction very simple. I wasn't able to be by the back bar because I knew I'd be laughing too hard, but based on the eyewitness reports, it played out like this. The friend said, "Are you Mike?" Mike replied, "Yes." My friend drops the folder on the bar, and Mike asked, "What's that?" My friend says, "Paternity suit. You've been served." And he turns around and immediately walks out of the bar. Mike read through the packet, shakily poured himself several drinks, and then ran over to the bar owner to ask what to do. He also called the number on the letterhead, but sadly did not leave a voicemail. After a solid 10 minutes of intense psychological revenge, the owner finally told Mike that he should closely read the last page of the packet. On it, in size 2 font, it read, "Go screw yourself, Mike." At which point, Mike ran to the front door and punched me in the chest. Several months later, Mike was on a trip across the country. He had left his car at home with his mom, who had generously had it washed for him. Mike, for some reason, kept the paternity suit paperwork in the driver's side door. During the course of the car wash, his mother found it and read the entire thing, then called him sobbing in the middle of the night, asking why he had not told her about her bastard Irish granddaughter. Okay, so my cousin is a prankster. She likes telling jokes, and one of her favorite jokes is during the holidays, she likes to tell me that my uncle, her dad, is coming to pick me up. If I'm being honest, my uncle is not a nice man. He yells at me and everyone for everything. He lies about people to make them look bad and him look good, and he makes fun of me for being overweight. He's verbally abusive, and it's gotten to the point where I've pretty much grey rocked him, which is basically no contact. So, onto the prank. Her favorite prank is telling me that he's coming to pick me up to take me to family gatherings, which I usually avoid going to if he's there. And 2 hours in the car with him, that's literally hell. So a couple weeks ago, she lied and told me he called and was gonna come pick me up for my birthday. I felt like I was having a panic attack. I remember crying, hyperventilating. I was pacing back and forth to try to figure out some way out of it. And yes, visiting him is just that bad. She started laughing, and I told her that's not funny. She knows how I feel about that man, and she says, "Don't you feel better now that you know he's not actually coming?" So, I haven't forgotten that. It's been 2 weeks, and I've had enough of that prank. I wanted to prank her to kind of get her back, and I remembered her biggest fear, which is clowns. She's been scared to death of clowns since she was a kid. So, I had a friend that's over 6 feet tall dress up in a scary looking clown suit. I told her I got a free dinner for 2 coupon for my birthday to her favorite restaurant and wanted to share it to bait her. We left and I had my clown in place. The plan was to stop in the middle of this old rural road and stop the car at a specific spot, where my friend was hiding. Everything went to plan. My friend parked his old junker car in the ditch on the side of the road, and I stopped to say that we needed to check it out to see if they needed help. While she's looking in it and looking around for the owner, I sneak back to my car. My clown runs out of an old barn and straight for us. She saw him, froze, and started screaming. She ran back to my car, but I sped off before she could get in. I didn't abandon her. I just drove over a hill where she couldn't see me. She tried running with the clown chasing her, screaming for help. He caught up to her, and she got on her knees and started crying. He then laughed and revealed it was a joke. I drove back and started laughing with him. She told me that it wasn't funny, and I repeated what she told me and said, "Don't you feel better that he's not a crazy clown?" She screamed and yelled the whole car ride at me and said I could have scared her to death. I told her that's how I feel when she tells me about my uncle. OP's uncle must be a horrible person for her to get mad anxiety and break down into tears at the thought of hanging out with him. The clown prank was absolutely perfect. My friends, and that wraps up another episode of r/ProRevenge. If you guys missed the last episode of r/ProRevenge, OP's greedy landlord mocks his dead mother, and OP absolutely decimates her life. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one.